Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our Dion Leadership webinar series. Today, we are talking about the topic of courses with horses, adding experiential events to your learning programs. And today, I have with me Steve, Terry, and Maureen to talk more in depth on this topic.
Thank you, Lauren, and thanks, Terry and Maureen, for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
So for those of you that are new to our webinar series, I'm Steve Dion. I lead Dion Leadership, and we run these educational events every month or two to be able to showcase things that are on the minds of our clients. And this time we decided to pick the topic of experiential learning, specifically with our partner that works with horses, Maureen Moons. And Maureen is going to talk in depth later about using equine facilitated learning and the benefits of that. But we're going to start before that to talk about experiential learning and how does that fit into your overall experience, from classroom learning, traditional ways, all the way through a variety of experiential activities. And Terri Schell is our practice leader of learning and development at Dion Leadership, and she will be running that part first. But before we get into either of those items, for those of you that are new to Dion Leadership, I just wanted to share with you that what we're all about. So we are a global leadership and organizational development consulting business, really founded on this notion that employees and workplaces are better when every employee can start every day excited and end every day accomplished. And there's a lot of activities and experiences to make that happen. And a lot of it is around leadership and culture. And that's the place we play in. We pride ourselves in doing a lot of thought leadership and winning awards for Brandon Hall, as you can see here. We write for Fast Company Magazine, Inc. Magazine. Actually, I'll just plug, just had an article in Training and Development Magazine this month. So if you're a TD member and you get the March magazine, you will see an article that we wrote featured in that magazine as well. So we're always trying to think about the latest trends, what's happening, and meet learners where they're at. We do that in really four kind of main solution areas: leadership coaching, leadership development and management training, team development, and OD. Today really falls into like the second, third, and even the fourth bucket, I would say. It's primarily a management and leadership development training activity, but as you'll hear, it's just a great application for working with an intact work team and also helping to maybe infuse some cultural elements into your organization. So really looking forward to unpacking this with you as well. And a lot of our experiences and the work that we talk about on these webinars are informed by the clients that we work with. So this is just a subset of the clients that we work with and in. And I believe these activities really fit, especially experiential learning, fit really well in the healthcare environment, absolutely in the manufacturing environment, professional services environment. I mean, it really transcends any industry. So if you're looking to network with anybody on this list too, happy to share and make the connections as well. Before I turn it over to Terry to talk a little bit about the concepts of experiential learning, I also wanted to share that there will be time at the end for chats. So feel free to use the chat feature or the Q&A feature. Send us some notes or comments along the way, and we'll make sure that we try to incorporate and get answers to you as well. So with that, Terry, take it away.
Thank you very much, Steve. So I want to talk about experiential learning in the context of the broader goal of any learning program, which is to make sure that learning sticks and to make sure that it's an experience that translates into the real world. You wouldn't be here if you didn't see the value of developing your people or developing leaders to take on increasingly more complex roles in your organization and to handle the challenges that they face today and the challenges that they're going to face tomorrow. And to that end, at Dion Leadership, we've crafted a curriculum that addresses skills and competencies for all levels of leaders, from supervisors to those in the C-suite. And no matter who we're working with, it's our imperative to make sure that that learning experience is meaningful, that it results in positive behavior change, and it's something that moves the leader forward and moves the organization forward. And so for that to happen, learning just can't be about theory and techniques and models of of what leadership is about. What we do is mine the work of thought leaders and develop our points of view around the best practices and latest ideas of those in business psychology, organizational development, and the like, and take those ideas and use that to craft our learning. But in addition to be grounded in those best practices, we want to make sure that that learning is relevant, practical, actionable, and sticky, which is why I have a sticky note on the slide that you're looking at. It's one thing to present leadership theory, but it's another for somebody to take what they've learned and be able to hit the ground and be able to manage a crisis or negotiate a deal. And so to bridge that gap, we leverage experiential learning as a really important component of literally every program that we offer. So let's talk about what that's like at Dion Leadership. So what's experiential learning? It's learning by doing. It's really as simple as that. It's any opportunity to take an active, hands-on approach to developing skills and knowledge and the attitudes that you need to be successful. And why is that important? Well, leaders are facing, as you know, complex, high-stakes situations, and there might not be a clear right answer in those situations. So what they get to do in experiential learning is they get to have an opportunity to have a safe environment in which to confront something that's a real-world challenge. But that environment is controlled, and they get a chance to experiment and try things out. And in doing so, they develop that judgment and that adaptability that they're going to need when they get back into their roles and into the workplace. And this can take a lot of forms, and I've got some of them noted here on this slide. Case studies that give an opportunity to solve a problem or make a decision and see what your peers come up with at the same time with the same problem. We utilize role playing and simulations. It's an opportunity to take on that role, and I always say it's so important to say the words out loud and see where your brain goes with that and see what that looks like in action. And we utilize that a lot. Some experiential learning is physical challenges. It's something that engages both your brain and your body at the same time to solve a problem or work together or collaborate with those you're learning with. Certainly shadowing and mentorship opportunities. They're not necessarily part of a curriculum, part of a course per se, but they can be part of a broader curriculum for people to learn and experience things also in a safe environment, but also under the guidance of somebody that can help move them along. Action learning projects. We see this a lot where learners get the opportunity to solve a real life issue that's happening in their organization and present on it, and sometimes even implement what they've come up with. Also, sometimes community service projects can really be valuable sources of learning, taking leaders out of the organization and into a different situation where they're applying their skills, but for a completely different yet really meaningful context. So these are just some examples of experiential learning that you'll find in our programs. And all of them have their place and their time when they're appropriate. And they're all really extremely effective because they speak to the principles of adult learning.
I know we're going to dig deep, obviously, in this sort of physical challenge arena and being out at a barn with horses in a moment. But we wanted to share this too, to say that we don't want people to think that when you go do experiences like courses with horses, that this is just a team building activity. This isn't just replacing like, let's all go out to dinner or let's do an escape room or something that's just fun. Yes, there are pieces to that, but this work, as you'll see as we unfold this, is very intentional to be able to build skill, competency, and mindset shifts.
Absolutely. So I'm going to take you back to grad school with me for a minute here. And I want to talk about the research behind what we're talking about with experiential learning. And the first thing I want to talk about is the work of Malcolm Knowles and adult learning principles. And the thing about this is you're all adult learners yourselves, and this will all, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, well, of course, it's because you know this innately, but it's proven by research as well. The thing about experiential learning is that it aligns with these principles, because when adults learn, they like to be self-directed. They like to be in charge of that learning and making decisions and directing the activities that they're doing. They need to be motivated. They learn best when they are motivated to do so, when they see that the learning that they're doing is going to make them better at their jobs, that there's some sort of incentive to doing that learning. They need that learning to be relevant in a similar vein. They need to know that they can apply that. It's meaningful to them. They like learning that builds on their previous experience. They're coming to this with knowledge and experience already, and they like to be able to tap that and apply that in new and different situations and build it that way. And they like that to be honored and acknowledged in that learning environment. And they like their learning to be problem-centered. Adults like to solve problems. They like to know that there's something at the end of it, some sort of reward at the end of what they're doing. So experiential learning addresses really well all of these components of adult learning. Another component here, or another grad school special that I want to show you, is this model from researcher David Kolb, and it's his experiential learning cycle. And he created this model to show how experience creates knowledge. And I'm going to start in that upper right corner with concrete experience. So we start this cycle with concrete experience. It's something you do firsthand, literally an experience that you have. It could be something new or something that you've done before, but perhaps in a new context. And then following that experience, you get this opportunity for reflection. You think, okay, you get to think about what you just experienced, analyze it a little bit, and in that process, you're seeing how that fits your previous understanding of a situation. And if it doesn't, you can reflect on why. Or you can, if it does, you can reflect on that as well and start making those connections, which also happens in this lower left-hand corner, this abstract conceptualization. So you're thinking about that experience and applying it to new contexts, and the opportunity to create that new knowledge starts. And so you start thinking of new concepts and new ideas, and then you get to that active experimentation. This is where you're trying and applying what you've learned to new situations to see what happens. And this can be something that happens immediately, or it can be something that happens over time as those experiences have built up in your consciousness. And from there, you get new knowledge and you get those new results. And as I mentioned, none of this is revelatory to you. You literally live this every day, but it's really something that's important for learning professionals to keep in mind as they are designing curricula, as they are making decisions about their learning programs, and as they're trying to think of ways for their employees to improve their learning, and ways to make sure their employees absorb and apply and retain new knowledge. I go back to my slide a few minutes ago about making learning sticky. All of this stuff is what anchors that goal. So I know as the practice lead at Dion Learning, I'm always looking for new and interesting ways to enhance our curriculum and to reach the learners that we work with. So on the spectrum of experiential learning, we have our Courses with Horses experience, and I'm so excited for Maureen to tell you about that. It's definitely on the cutting edge of the spectrum of learning experiences, and I'm going to hand it off to Maureen to share those details.
Thank you so much, Terri. I am so excited to be here. This work is so important, I believe, and it's been just a privilege to partner with Dion Leadership. The caliber of the folks over there and the services that they provide, I find it such an amazing partnership, and I'm super grateful. So I'm gonna start, if you go ahead to just from a 2,000-foot view, I'm gonna start with a little bit of an introduction about myself, my team, and the farm. And then we're going to talk about what this work is. What is equine experiential learning, and why are horses so good at it? what makes them such amazing co-facilitators. We'll talk about some typical applications that we see here at our organization and the outcomes that we have experienced with our clients. We'll talk about the process, and there will be plenty of time for Q&A.
So, if you haven't noticed yet, Maureen is on location, and
yes.
we may be getting a special guest somewhere along our
You never know.
So I hope you can stick with us to see that.
Wasn't that brave of me to be out here? Thank you. On the old days, I was on an airplane or I was at a desk, and 12, 13-hour days, the corporate world that I came from. And now I'm sitting in my barn with my laptop propped on a saddle, hoping that it doesn't shift. And there's birds, there might be a rooster that might visit us, never know. It could be a horse. So I wanted you to kind of see the facility, and I'm actually doing this from my barn. So my name is Maureen Moons. Again, I am the owner of Courses with Horses, which is our primary location is 3 Moons Farm, which is my farm. I say that I'm the owner, facilitator, and chief animal servant on call 24/7 for this menagerie. I started Courses with Horses back in 2017. Prior to that, my corporate life, up until recently, was really centered on HR solutions. So I spent over a decade at Skillsoft. I'm DDI Master Certified. I've spent time selling HCM software to HR organizations for, I won't say how many years because that'll reveal too much. I got my BBA from Walsh College. Back in 2017, I was working actually, I was supporting HCM solutions from Oracle. And at that time, just like now, uncertain times, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I found it affecting me personally. So I would go out in the morning and spend time with the horses before I came in and started, this super important but very intense work. And the shift that I saw from the time that I was in the presence of the horses till I went back to my desk was so profound that I just knew there had to be a way to take that work and that energy without getting too, ooga booga. I want to just really say that there has to be some way that the horses could help our leaders and teams. And that was sort of the kernel of my journey through these certifications. So back in 2019, I went through a certification program called the HERD Institute, and HERD is an acronym for Human Equine Relational Development. And I learned so much about why horses are such phenomenal physiological support for us. From there, in 2019 and 2020, I went through a program called E3A, which stands for Equine Experiential Education Association. And those 2 years gave me a whole other aspect of this work. And most recently, last year, I went through an academy that certified me in something called Mindful Leaders. So it's just another aspect of working with these amazing co-facilitators to help humans. And that just, has brought me to today. So next slide, please.
And as you can see from Maureen's background, I mean, you need to have and be adept at really understanding, not just being comfortable with horses, but facilitating the emotional side of that work. So what we've been able to do is pair other training content. So for some of you on the call that maybe have been in the classroom with some of our facilitators, those folks and Maureen and her team who are certified in these HERD programs create a program that's really powerful and deep and meaningful. But I think it's important that people understand the science behind it. We're looking forward to kind of unpacking.
Yeah, don't get me going on the science behind it. We'll be here all day. So I wanted to share just a couple members of the team. They might pop their head in at some point while we're here talking, but we have a herd of 10 geldings. Well, I'll say 9.5 because look at Zippy in the middle of the top row. He's just about as big as a minute. He's just a little guy. These horses are very familiar with humans, right? They spend a lot of time. I work with special needs kids. I work with veterans. I work with corporations. They're very familiar with working with humans, but they're not trained. So they are still, while domesticated, they are still horses that have all of their instincts and natural behaviors, right? So if anybody on the call is familiar with lesson horses, so if you go and take lessons at a lesson barn, you know, those horses are really trained to do certain things. These guys aren't, right? So they're not feral, but they're not, you know, going to do something on command. You're probably going to see that you earn their trust, and then the results is where the magic happens. So each one of these horses play a role in the herd out here, just like on your team. Your leaders at every level of the organization play a role in your herd at work. So I'm going to tie those two together in just a minute here, but these are just a few of my favorites. I know they're spoiled. So the farm itself, I am sitting in the main barn. I've got a third, it's in the top right-hand corner there. We have a 35 by 60 foot indoor arena, which is wonderful for inclement weather. It's not a problem. A 20 by 20 heated classroom also has air conditioning for the summer. We have a huge outdoor areas, a couple of them for both observation and performing some of the workshop activities. Restroom facilities with hot and cold running water. It's a little rustic, but there's hot and cold water for washing your hands. Lots of car parking. And then, like I said, just a menagerie, the horses, the dogs, the cats, the goats. We all come together to be Three Moons Farm, where Courses with Horses is hosted. I want to mention, while this is our physical home base, myself and my facilitators, my two-legged facilitators and the Dion consultants can go anywhere. So I have hosted workshops in Texas, in Orlando, Florida, in California, Arizona, and even in the UK. So this is our home base, but we can go where you are. Also, we've got a network of barns we work with.
We're not shipping horses all over the place, but
No.
we're finding other partner barns that are there that we can rent that facility, and then we can facilitate.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Very important. Thanks, Steve. Pulling them behind my Volkswagen. Yes, Lori, Pennsylvania, absolutely. You're just a hop, skipping away. I've got several facilitators throughout the state of Pennsylvania that work with Deanne and myself. So what is this work? You know, this is a slide that I feel like I could take the entire presentation talking about because it's so incredible. Horses are prey animals, and that is just fundamental to the work that we do. As prey animals, they're constantly on alert for danger, right? So they are always sort of in fight, flight, or freeze mode. They're very energetically driven, and that is so important to this work. I will say, anybody that has a dog, right? I love my dog so much. The difference with working with maybe dogs or different animals other than horses is those are predators, right? And horses as prey animals truly add an additional element to the outcomes that we are looking to achieve. So this is just an experiential learning approach. We work with you to determine, you know, what goals you're trying to achieve, and then we customize the program to meet those goals. You know, the most important thing is that the interactions with the horses, they really promote this instant feedback. The horses don't care if you're the CEO. The horses don't care if you drive a BMW or if you drive a 25-year-old Volkswagen. They don't care. So they are going to react to your authenticity, your energy, your ability to lead, right? As prey animals, they're looking for leaders. So you will, as a participant, you will draw on different insights throughout these activities. So each of these activities is designed to focus on what outcomes you're looking to achieve. So no two workshops are the same. In fact, we could design the workshop down to the minute to be the same as one that we did last week. And I guarantee the horses are going to show up different based on the participants' energy. So it's a very safe environment, not just physically safe, but psychologically safe. There is no right or wrong to these activities. They're just opportunities to either work as a team to accomplish a goal or work as individuals. I will say with the leadership development, it's a little bit of a different flavor than the team building, but it's the same process. How many times have you gone to a team building where you're at, say, and I'm not disparaging other opportunities to build teams, but maybe you go and do laser tag or you go drive a race car. Some of those things can be competitive, right? And it is opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to build the team and pull them together. So all of the activities have that in mind. So the themes that emerge are incredible. They're around trust, personal presence, authenticity, teamwork, communication, especially nonverbal, and self-awareness. And don't so many of those things sound like emotional intelligence? Because they are, right? So there's no need to know anything about horses in our program. You're not going to ride a horse. It's all the work is done from the ground. We have people all the time that want to participate, but they are fearful or they have anxiety. So we have an area where they can participate, but behind a fence, right? Or maybe there's allergies or other things that we need to accommodate. We gladly and warmly do that. So next slide, that's kind of a high level. And the next slide, we will talk about why horses. So, oh my gosh, there's so much to it. There's so much to it. I mentioned them being prey animals, and that is so, so important. But for leader skills development, horses will hold up a mirror to you. They'll absolutely reflect back what they're sensing. And as I said, they're so highly sensitive and energetically driven. They're going to give you feedback right away. And it might be that you're asked to halter a horse and the horse does a subtle turn of the head and you can't get the halter on them, you know, something like that. There's no right or wrong. There's no pass or fail. We'll look at it. We'll see what's happening. We talk about it and then we draw those outcomes. They want to trust you, right? So just like your folks do, you know, just like our employees do, they want to trust leaders. And empathy is another thing that happens with the skills development. The horses are looking for that connection, that empathetic connection. As far as team building and collaboration, they have to accomplish tasks together, right? In a safe place. Your teams will need to come together and collaborate and be on the same page so that the horse feels that and senses that. Because if they're not, the horse is going to reflect that back as you try to accomplish whatever activities that we are doing. So it really promotes that cohesion and breaks down those barriers. You're vulnerable out there in the field, right? These are 1,000, 1,200 pound animals. You need to be together as a team so that the horse senses that so you can complete the task, right? Personal growth and awareness. Oh my gosh, these guys are so good at relieving stress. They help us with where we're falling down. They help us with our confidence and overcoming fear. It's just super powerful from a personal growth and awareness perspective. And I will say, we're going to talk about the process in just a minute, how we design the program for your workshop. But I want to say that, you know, lots of folks will come out here and think that they just want, you know, a team building fun half day at the barn, or, you know, a fun day in the farm is like a standalone experience. That is absolutely great. We love that. But I can assure you that we're going to sneak some like broccoli into the spaghetti sauce. Good things are going to happen for your organization based on your day out here, because you can't help it, right? The horses are so good at that. So we can go to the next slide. The left side of this process is just, it's everything. We work really hard to understand exactly what you as an organization are experiencing and any challenges that you're facing. We even have organizations that have certain initiatives that are going really well, and they want to reinforce that and they want to reward that, or they want to capitalize on that, right? So it's not just about fixing gaps. Sometimes it's about reinforcing and enhancing the good things that are happening. But the program design can't happen until we fully understand. And you know, your DN consultants are so excellent at that, just diving in and really getting to the root of what's happening. So once we understand all that, then we can design the workshop based on that knowledge. So we spend a lot of time up front with the discovery and the planning. But then we design these horse-guided activities that are relevant. Can you hear the birds? I don't know if you can hear it's springtime in the barn. So these horse-guided activities are based on what we've learned, right? So again, no two workshops are the same. As far as the event facilitation, where we actually execute on these activities that we've designed along with your consultant and your folks, it's a two-part process. So we're going to have the time in the field where we're doing these horse-guided activities. But the magic happens when we go back in the classroom, when we debrief what happened out in the field or happened out in the arena. That's where we really dig in and discover self-discovery and team discovery and all those things. It's very difficult to teach things like presence and, this kinesthetic learning has an amazing effect on all the participants. So we go back in and we talk about it, and we talk about things that they find that they feel safe talking about, things that maybe we would have never uncovered without these kind of vulnerable interactions in the field. And then the most,
I'd say too, Maureen, it's not, and we've experienced this with our executive team as well, doing this work and, seeing groups go through this. And it's not just the fact that they're interacting with the horse, I would say. It's the overall getting somebody out of their traditional environment, whether they're used to being on a, working from home and on screen, 9 hours a day, or they're in a office in a conference room. You're in nature, you're in and around a whole bunch of things. Yes. The driving out there, and all of a sudden people start saying things that they wouldn't have otherwise said in a traditional workshop. And depending on what we're trying to do in this particular, module of a longer term program, being out there creates, as you mentioned, sort of another level of authenticity. But there's sort of this frequency of somebody because they're connecting different dots just by being in a very new environment. I know there's a lot of science behind that, but there's some interesting sort of, I think, magic with the horses around that.
It is, Steve, thank you so much. That was so eloquently said. It's really, there's a shift, right? And that's where the real sticky changes happen, to use Terri's word, the really incredible things. So just one, we don't have to go back, but just one other, from a important functional and logistic standpoint, we do a pre-survey. It is less than 5 minutes of your folks' time. I know lots of folks have survey fatigue, but we find out things like if there's any allergies, if there's any, food allergies, dust allergies. We look into, if folks are coming from out of the state or out of the country, they might not have footwear. So we find out if they have proper footwear, and if not, we'll provide that. So it's just sort of a logistical survey that happens up front, but I just bared mentioning how we discover who's coming and how they're prepared. Now, I'm going to say one other thing really quickly before I talk about the sample agenda. I have had this absolute run of clients. We have, the team and I have had this run of clients that want to keep it a secret until they get out here. Now, I don't know what that's about. Maybe we just are all stressed and life needs a little levity, but the questionnaire is worded in such that they don't know what they're doing for the day. They don't know what they're doing for the day. So it's more of a kind of a standalone event, but that it ends up being a really fun reveal when they drive up and see the horses. So a sample agenda. Obviously, these activities are going to be based on what we learned through discovery, right? Every agenda is going to be different, but we start with our breakfast in the agenda, looking at the agenda introductions, and then very importantly, the horse safety and horse communication. We're going to give you a crash course on how horses communicate. We'll talk about what this work is and how it works and give them an idea what the day is going to look like. And then we always start the day with an icebreaker of some kind. And my absolute favorite, most effective one is actually giving them a clipboard and a question or two, and then sending the folks either into the pasture to observe the horses, or if they're more comfortable behind the fence, they can observe from behind the fence. And they're going to spend 5 to 10 minutes with this first impressions activity, and then we go back and debrief that. What comes out of that are unconscious biases. There's so much information that we get just from that first activity, and it sets the tone for the day. It's an excellent icebreaker.
And I could say when our team did it, and Terri, you could chime in too, we went out and first I'm thinking, the activity was like, which horse would you want on your team if you were doing XYZ kind of project, and why? And I'm thinking, am I really going to be able to know that? And by the time we're done, we're all like, oh, TJ, like, I'm not having him on my team. He was so, and amazing, within like 20 minutes, you have the personality of 12 horses, and we're talking about them and connecting the dots of things in the work environment already. It's just a
Right.
really, it's
Yeah.
seeming so simple, but it's so deep.
It
Yeah, we've
also
got
revealed the differences among our team, or the things that we observed or the things that we interpreted. Maybe Steve saw something in a horse and I was like, well, I didn't see that, or that's not important to me, but it was important to him. And just that conversation right there in this kind of absurd setting just really revealed so much about us as team members and what we bring to this work in the real world. It was a very revelatory exercise, but so simple.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had some project, well, we had some project, you guys were the project managers out, and they had a huge project due Q3 that they were going to present to the board. And, you know, one project manager is like, I love Joey. He's young, he's energetic, he's a little spontaneous, he's kind of in your face, but I love that energy and I need that energy. His teammate said, he's a loose cannon. I don't want that guy on my project. No way. I want Rocket, who's quiet and stoic and confident. So it's a great first impression. And then we will design the remaining 3 activities, 2 to 3 activities around, again, your outcomes, right? But these are just some examples. The first one I put here was 12-legged collaboration, where as a team, I don't want to give too much away because we've got to maintain the in case you join us, we don't want to give too much away, but they have to complete a task, basically as a 12-legged being, right? So could be 2 or 3 people in a horse, could be, we don't know, right? And they have to accomplish these goals that we've set out. Maybe it's an obstacle course, maybe it's a there and back. So the target of that activity is really to strengthen team communications. And in some cases, they're not able to talk, so it's nonverbal. All the while, they've got all kinds of different priorities and obstacles coming at them. So they're all working on a common goal. How do they get it done? It's a great partnership builder. The next one is Matrix Mission. I originally had this one called Mission Impossible, and I thought that's way too negative. So I changed it to Mission Possible. And that didn't really cut it either. So I settled on Matrix Mission because so many organizations are matrixed organizations. And while we might have our own leader that we report to, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it results in silos. And so we don't always have line of sight to what's happening way before that project gets to me. And we may not have line of sight to that project farther down the road. So through this activity, we are problem solving together and understanding everybody's priorities and, you know, leveraging that teamwork. Celebrating success is one I like to, one of many that I like to end with, where it could potentially be a little bit of a breakdown activity. Maybe they don't succeed on the first try, but they work together, they motivate each other, and they recognize accomplishments. I'll give you another example that I love a lot with leaders and senior leaders is something called leadership in a box, where a leader has to move one of these 1,000-pound, very highly aware animals from here to there without touching, talking, bribing, etc. So you're really digging into your own energy to make these things happen. And then we wrap up. And the most important part, of course, is this action plan. What are we going to take away from this to either build on when you come back or build on with the rest of your Dion leadership program? I'm here to tell you our most important consideration when we're building these is making sure that we're using a common language. You've got bigger programs, no doubt. Most of the time there are bigger programs that we're tying into, and we are just a cog in that wheel. You're doing tremendous work with your leadership and development programs. We just are a part of that. So we work very closely with your Dion consultants and your folks to make sure we've got a common language and there's cohesiveness. So we can go to the next slide. So, you know, I see it all, right? We see it all. We see standalone events where we're teaching individual executives. We have standalone events where we're teaching a team of leaders. All the way through to where we're doing capstone events where there's an internal MBA program or something along those lines, an internal certification, and we're the reward at the end. Sometimes that means a caterer and they have a dinner out here and, you know, all the goodness that goes with that. I've had retreats where they come out and the folks that were from out of town, there's a beautiful Royal Park Hotel down the road, and they came in and did a half-day workshop with their DN consultants and then used the space as their meeting space for the rest of the meeting, right? So they had their horse activity workshop and then used the facility for the rest of, so it really runs the gamut. But these are some of the typical applications. A cog in the wheel, I keep saying, but you know, we are certainly open to, you know, a one and done if that's what you're looking for. It's up to you. So typical outcomes, oh my gosh, we see the stickiness. I keep saying it. Terri used it in her slides. The stickiness is unreal. As I go through these outcomes, I want to share just really quickly. I had a group of engineers. So if anybody here understands, you know, what that word in itself probably conjures up, you know, a certain personality type. These are very, very disciplined engineers, I'll just say, who came in, and I'm just going to say they came in with their arms crossed and a surly look on their face. They were telling me how many emails were piling up in their inbox and how many voicemails they were getting and how behind they were. And really, they didn't understand why they were out here on this crazy adventure. That's okay. Those are all just data points, you know, and we take that into consideration as we proceed. By the end, they had created like a theme with one of the horses that they all just got a kick out of. His name's Trooper. And they eventually had Trooper as one of their, you know, mascots for their team activities. And not this Christmas, but last Christmas, I got a book in the mail that they had all signed. And they wrote, we all agree the horses are still working on us. So there's that stickiness. And the book was this incredible book called The Perfect Horse. And it's a story of the Lipizzaner stallions when they were in occupied Germany, how they were stolen and how the Allied forces came in and rescued them. It's just it happens a lot. There's that shared experience. There's that trust that's built. There's a visceral kinesthetic experience that happens collectively out here that sticks with your team. I won't go through and read all these because you can certainly read them, but the self-confidence, the reduction in stress, and the common shared experience, just those are the things that I will tell you just stand out for me. Anything from Terri and Steve from when you were out here? Anything that else that sticks when you've been out here?
I think overall was how much our team talked about it and thought about how much I personally thought about it in ever since we were out there, and how much I see in the work that I do. I see applications for it, or when I work with clients, and something will connect to that experience. And I will admit I was kind of skeptical going out there, and I as I was before we started, as I told Maureen and Steve, I was like, oh, these are big giant horses. I'm not a horse gal. By the end of it, I could not keep my hands off of them. I just wanted to spend time with them and just keep that going.
Yeah. And if anybody's interested, you know, feel free to reach out after, and I can share some of the research studies on, you know, as prey animals and their electromagnetic field. You know, we used to just think we felt better in the presence of horses, but now there's a lot of science behind it and research, and I'm happy to share those research studies if you're interested.
And if anybody has any questions too, feel free to use the chat. We're going to have a few minutes at the end as we close up here to see if you have any particular questions. But what we're trying to share with you today is, you know, this modality particularly, right? And how you might want to think about doing something like this, and hopefully make the connections, what audiences would fit this experience and how you might, you know, connect that. But also the idea of, in any leadership program, especially if you have something that's lasting 6 months or a year, to make to hopefully not have only classroom-based, cognitive-based programs and experiences. For many of you that have worked with us for other things, we have business simulations that we do. You know, you're on a computer and you're doing stuff, you're standing up and you're doing things different with a, you know, a avatar type person. You know, this is very different experience than that. Obviously, this is more, you know, real in the moment, tactile, and all of those things together bring the richness to a program. So if you're thinking about things around your high potential leaders and people you want to stay with an organization, you know, getting out and doing something that's meaningful and different is really powerful. And with all the different items that we've, you know, done in the past, like Maureen mentioned, you know, there's the laser tag, there's the cooking class. There's nothing wrong with any of those things, and they may also be in a program, but I don't know, there's something about being with another living being like this that is just particularly special. Yeah. So any other last comments or thoughts before we close out? What I will put on the screen then, as we kind of think if there's anything else here, our next webinar is going to be focused on working with distressed leaders from conflict to collaboration. It's on May 6th, and there's a QR code to sign up for that. This will be with another one of our Dion facilitators who has written a book with one of her professor friends, specifically on distressed physicians. For those of you that are in the healthcare space, this is a definite must come to. I would say others, even if you're not in healthcare, if you have leaders that are high functioning, smart, business-like folks, the research applies to that audience as well. And her and her co-author will be joining me to unpack the book and the research that was recently published. We also have our course catalog that are supporting courses with this material, and we have a specific landing page as well for this Courses with Horses material. So if you're like, what was that again? Or if you wanted to explain it to somebody, under our management courses, you can do a kind of pull down and see a page particularly with this, and you can see our team out there with the horses as well. And then we recently published our leadership coaching effectiveness study. So good body research, 5th year in a row. Want to make sure that that gets out there as well. Let's see if there's any other, there are a few other questions coming in now. What else? Size, Maureen, what would be a typical size of a group you would have out at the bar?
Thank you. You know what, anywhere from 5 to 25. You know, we can do smaller sometimes with executive, higher level executives. We might have 1 or 2 of the mahogany suite out, but the sweet spot is kind of around 12, but doubling that, we just add more facilitators. We have about 1 facilitator to every 5 participants.
All right. Well,
So
thank you everybody for attending. Terri, do you have something else in closing?
I just wanted to add, one of the fascinating parts about it for me, if you or your people ever participate in this, is talking about the behaviors of the horses in the herd, the wild horses out west, and Maureen's facilitators who have studied this intensely, and the hierarchy and the dynamics of that herd and the parallels to leadership teams. And I think about that often, just that piece, which isn't about interacting with the horses, but is just understanding how they interact with each other, is just truly fascinating.
Thanks, Terri. There was a question or two here on cost and pricing, and I have to say this, I've not found this to be as expensive of an endeavor as you would think. We have this set up as kind of a 3-tiered pricing of what a half day or a day looks like, from like 5 to, I think it's 5 to 10 people, 10 to 15, and 15 to 24. Oh, there we go. No. And that's because we need more handlers with the group there. So we also have options. Maureen's got a great place if we're here, wonderful place for lunch, have a place for happy hour to do other things out there. So it's really not a single, like, this is what the price would look like. I'm happy to follow up with you on what general pricing is, and then kind of customize what a workshop might look like if it's something you're considering. And it really is about how many people, half day, full day, and if you want us to wrap around food and drinks with the experience as well.
Yeah. exactly. I'm so
You want to
great.
introduce your horse on the way out?
Yeah, just this is Jameson. Everybody seems to love that name, Jameson. And I was hoping we'd have more visitors, but you know what? They're not trained. They show up how they show up. Case in point.
That's awesome.
So grateful for everybody's time. Really enjoyed sharing this with y'all.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you joining us. Have a great day. And if you want any other follow-up information, you know how to find us. And we'll be sending out the replay as well and putting it on our YouTube channel.
Thank you all so much.